Good morning, Sean Rochester for 5 Reasons Sports, bringing you a quick take 5 this morning. Actually talking about the Dolphins. This is probably my first Dolphins video here. The Tua and Brian Flores debate, and I thought it was interesting some of the after effects of a great Dan Le Batard interview that has been kind of going viral across all social media platforms, and the reaction to it by different sides, whether it's compassion for Tua, whether it's criticizing the way that he handled coaching or the way that he spoke about Brian Flores, or yesterday the way that Brian Flores responded back to Tua's claims, and Mike McDaniel had comments, and this is probably going to continue for a while. They're always going to be connected in that weird split they had early in Tua's career. But I looked at it from this lens, not so much about the words that were said, but like the reaction to it. And I have a tweet that's up here, from a guy named Jason Brown. If you're not familiar with Jason Brown, it's probably not surprising because he's not that famous of a coach, despite the fact that he has a blue check mark. You would know him from Last Chance U, which was a popular Netflix series about, a JUCO coach and getting guys into higher levels of football. But if what he was known for is the way that he acted, the way that he spoke, different things that he did in that series. And unsurprising to anybody, his response to this was, quote, "Maybe the truth hurts and we have become so soft that these kids need sweet nothings whispered in their ear at an all-time high. Flores is a coach for men in the man's league. This is no longer that." So I want to push back on that a little bit. And really, I've never coached in the NFL. Quite frankly, I've never coached football at any significant level. But I have coached and I have taught, and there's no difference between the two. Coaching is teaching, teaching is coaching. It's just the subject at hand, right? So I have almost 20 years of teaching experience. When you deal with kids, when you deal with athletes, and a lot of times when we're talking about pro sports, they're still really kids. The way that you speak to people, you have to know the buttons you're pressing, right? So in the classroom, there may be people you can challenge. There's going to be people that you have to be very delicate with. Same thing on the court as a basketball coach. I have kids that I can go hard with. There's other kids that I have to be a little bit softer with. There's people that I can challenge directly. There's people that I have to criticize in big groups or small groups rather than individually. It's different ways of understanding that. That's coaching. And I would venture to say that Jason Brown actually does understand that, despite the way that he tweeted that out. The way that it questions that Tua basically can't take hard coaching, it just isn't true. If you think about where he came from, he played at Alabama. Are we saying that Nick Saban, one of the greatest football coaches of all time, is not someone that pushes his kids? Go Google, go to YouTube and look at Nick Saban and see if he's a guy that appears to be hard and difficult to play for in practice. Now, the way that I frame that is probably not the best way to say it. Difficult to play for. Hard coaching isn't a bad thing. I mean, as someone that, again, I coached high school and AAU girls basketball and coached boys basketball at the high school level before that. And I've been around college programs. When I was in college, Kurt Miller was the head coach at the program I worked with. He's now the LA Sparks coach. He was at the Connecticut Sun. He was a USA basketball coach. He's a guy that can rip into players, but he didn't do it in a demeaning way. He challenged them. He pushed them to be the best that they could be. And they went to two NCAA tournaments, one going to the Sweet 16 as a mid-major team. As a coach, I don't venture to act like I know more than Brian Flores or Nick Saban or Mike McDaniel or any of these guys. Like, I'm just a small part of a big pool of coaches at the high school level. But I know when I was younger, I would yell and scream and do all those things. And it really wasn't because of the players. It was because I didn't know what I was doing. It made me feel better. And you learn and evolve as a coach, and you don't need to do that. So hard coaching isn't pushing people. It's not yelling and screaming. It's not the volume in the room. It's the respect that you give to the athletes that are in front of you, that are giving up their time to play a game, to try to, whether it's the high school level, maybe get a college scholarship at the NBA, pro level, whatever, trying to get money. But it's a respect that goes into it. And what I think Tua keeps pointing out is the respect or lack thereof that was existent when Brian Flores was there. So when you look at someone like Jason Brown challenging basically like almost the manhood of it, which is funny because, again, as someone that coaches girls basketball, there's no difference between the way that you coach the two. And there are small differences. But because I coach girls basketball doesn't mean I can't go hard at them. I can't push them. They can take it probably just as well, if not better, than most boys or men. But to challenge it and say, he's for men in a man's league, like Tua can take coaching. What he can't take is disrespect. And we know that in the workplace. For the rest of us that aren't pro athletes, like when your boss doesn't give you the respect that you deserve, you don't give back, the same type of output that you normally would. It's no different in coaching. If I'm disrespectful to a player and demeaning them and telling them what they can't do all the time, well, that's inevitably going to, get saturated in their brain. And Tua hints on that. You come in every day and people tell you what you can't do versus someone that comes in every day and tells you how great you're going to be. The results change. So I just think, the reaction of some people to turn this into like a toughness thing. Yeah, today's modern athletes are very different. I'm 40 years old. Like the way that I was coached would not fly this time, and now in this era. But it doesn't mean necessarily that they're soft. It's just things evolve, things change. The way that people treat people are different. The way that what is acceptable is different. How you talk to people is different. It doesn't mean that you can't coach them hard. The volume can go up, but the respect level has to stay there. And I just wanted to weigh in on that. I thought, giving a kind of a lens that as a coach and the way that I viewed things, although not at the same level as them and the way that they're talking about Tua, and I just want to jump in and share that. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back on 5 Reasons Sports with lots of content over the next week.